Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Mini Books Podcast with your host Gloria and Rogan, and today we are excited to dive into Special Book with You. We picked this one because it has really important lessons to share and we can't wait to talk about them. So let's get started.
Welcome back everyone. Today's deep dive is going to be juicy. We're diving into Awaken the Giant Within.
Tony Robbins, classic.
We're talking personal change, those big shifts that redefine who we become.
Because we all have that capacity, right, to transform.
Absolutely. And Robbins doesn't mess around. He throws down this idea. Our decisions, not our circumstances, they're what shape our destiny.
He's all about taking control of the pen, right? Writing your own story.
Exactly. And he has this incredible story about flying in a helicopter. He's looking down at this building, and guess what?
Don't tell me he used to clean it.
Bingo. He was a janitor there. Talk about a visual reminder of how much can change. A decade can seem like forever. But it's wild how fast it goes.
And are you going to like what you see in 10 years, looking back? It all comes down to the choices you're making right now, every single day.
He's big on that, those small decisions adding up. And it's not just about thinking positive. It's about understanding how our brains get wired for success. Or,
It's the programming, right? And we're not always aware of the code.
Exactly. He tells this funny story about his mom making him chug beer as a kid.
Oh, no.
It's tough love.
She thought it would make him tough. But obviously, he just ended up hating beer.
I bet. But that's such a perfect example of how our brains work, though, right?
Totally. He calls it neuroassociations. You experience something, and your brain links it to either pleasure or pain. It's like you break up with someone who loves, say, Coldplay.
Suddenly you can't stand Coldplay.
Exactly. And it's not just silly stuff like that. It affects everything, how we work, our relationships, even what we eat. Because it's not just willpower, it's deeper than that. Think about advertising, right? The California raisins, totally random, but they made raisins cool. Catchy jingles, fun visuals, boom, 20% sales increase.
Oh, yeah. They were huge.
But it proves the point. They reshaped how people felt about raisins, all through clever marketing.
So it's not just about raisins. What are WE constantly being sold? Products, lifestyles, ideas.
Yeah.
They all come with those prepackaged associations.
That buy this, be happy message.
Exactly. And it's happening all the time, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what are you letting shape your likes and dislikes, your desires, your whole sense of self?
It's a question worth asking. How much of it is actually coming from you?
It's almost like we're on an autopilot sometimes. But how do we even begin to reprogram ourselves? If we're driven by this pain-pleasure principle, how do we take the wheel and actually steer?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And Robbins, he uses these two really fascinating examples to illustrate this whole thing, Donald Trump and Mother Teresa.
Whoa, okay. Talk about a study in contrast. What could those two possibly have in common?
Right. You'd think they're polar opposites, but Robbins argues that they're both driven by the same basic forces, seeking pleasure and avoiding pain.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But their lives are so different. So how does this pain-pleasure thing play out in, say, Donald Trump's world?
Well, for Trump, Robbins says pleasure is all about winning. The wealth, the status, seeing his name everywhere, that's his reward. Pain, that's being second best, being forgotten.
Which explains a lot, right? The constant need to be on top, the bigger deals, everything bigger.
Exactly. But here's the thing. That same drive, it makes him vulnerable too. The fear of not being the best, it can lead to rash decisions, a constant need for validation. It's a double-edged sword.
Wow. Okay, that's Trump. But what about someone like Mother Teresa? Her whole life was about helping others, easing their suffering. That doesn't exactly scream pleasure seeker.
It doesn't, does it? But Robbins, he says, even acts of service, they come from that same drive to move away from pain and towards pleasure. For Mother Teresa, her pain was the suffering she saw around her. Her pleasure, alleviating that pain, making a difference.
So it's not just about being a saint, it's about her own internal wiring. Like she was wired to find pleasure in helping others.
Exactly. We all have our own compass, right? Guiding us towards what feels good, away from what hurts. But what feels good is different for everyone.
That's pretty profound. But I gotta ask, if we're all wired to avoid pain, why do people stay stuck in bad situations, like a terrible job, a toxic relationship? Why not just leave if it hurts so much?
That's where Robbins brings in this idea of the emotional threshold. Basically, we all have a limit for how much discomfort we can handle before we're forced to
An
change.
emotional threshold, so like a breaking point.
Kind of, but it's more nuanced. Think of it like a pot of water on the stove. You turn up the heat, but it doesn't boil instantly, right?
Takes a little while for it to reach that boiling point.
Exactly. And we all have different tolerance levels. Some people, they're simmering, content even at a low heat. Others, they need things to be boiling hot to feel alive.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. But how does that play into, actually making a change? If we're so good at just dealing with the heat, even when it's uncomfortable.
That's the thing about awareness, right? Once you understand this whole pain-pleasure mechanism, how it drives you, that's when you can start to rewire things.
So it's not about becoming immune to pain or pleasure. It's about choosing what those things mean to us.
Exactly. Robbins is all about taking control. You decide what you focus on, what things mean to you, and ultimately who you become.
He really emphasizes that, doesn't he? It's not just about wanting a better job. It's about deciding what kind of person has that job, what their values are, how they treat people. It's bigger than just checking things off a list.
Totally. It's about stepping into that identity, owning it. Who do you want to be? Not just what do you want to have.
It's so powerful. It's been incredible diving into all of this with you. Any final thoughts for our listeners? What's the one thing you hope they take away from all of this?
You are not a passenger in your own life. You're the driver. You have the power to change the course, to rewrite the script. It starts with awareness, then action. So who are you committed to becoming? And are the choices you're making today reflecting that commitment? Those are questions worth asking yourself every single day.
Wow, what a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And remember, you have the power to awaken the giant within. Until next time, keep exploring and keep growing.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to dive into more book insights and key learnings, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Mini Books Podcast, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. We're back every Sunday at 9 a.m. with new books and more to learn from. Until next time, take care, keep learning, and keep growing. Remember, this is Mini Books Podcast.